the model that we're looking at for service is Zerubbabel from the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. Zerubbabel is talked about in the book of Ezra. There's certain traits that stand out that I think we can try to embody in our lives in regiment, and that connect with the idea of service. So trait number one that we see with Zerubbabel is Zerubbabel gets up and leads the way. There was something in him that rose to the task. And there's a lot of us that will have opportunities in life, and just because you have the opportunity does not mean anything if you don't get up and do something about it. And there's a lot of people that pass opportunities to serve, to be used of God. They pass it up all the time when there's really nothing stopping them. They just don't rise to the task. And we encourage you to rise to the task in regiment, and particularly in Vanguard. But Zerubbabel gets up and leads the way. He becomes a leader, someone that people can follow. Trait number two we see about Zerubbabel is someone who gives and follows orders. He gives orders and follows orders. And I think if you're going to be an effective servant for God, you have to understand the chain of command. You have to understand authority. You have to be someone that respects authority and someone that's respectable to be an authority figure. There's a lot of people that like to boss others around, but they don't have the character and nobody will follow them. Zerubbabel gave and followed orders. They were on assignment to go back to build the temple. He was on assignment from the king of Persia, King Cyrus, and he followed orders and he gave orders. And that's part of being a servant, is service leadership. The other thing about Zerubbabel, trait number three, is Zerubbabel inspires leadership and sacrificial giving in others. See, Zerubbabel wasn't a one-man show. He wasn't a look-at-me kind of guy. There was a whole pack of people that were leading alongside him. That means there had to be a quality that other people with leadership abilities would follow after. And the other thing that we see early on in the story with Zerubbabel is all of these people, all these key leaders in this group, came together and sacrificially gave. And that's something about service too. Service is also monetary service. It's being willing to pay the bill, to get things done, to be generous, not just with time, but with finances, with resources, going the extra mile. That's all tied together. A great server tends to be also a great giver. Those things go together a lot, and they did with Zerubbabel. Trait number four that we see with Zerubbabel as the story unfolds when they're rebuilding the temple at Jerusalem, as he was accustomed to hard work. There was a lot of hard work that had to be done, and with that hard work also came hardships. There was difficulties, challenges. There was a lot of criticism. When you do anything for God, you're going to get criticized, and Zerubbabel was harshly criticized, and there were a lot of hindrances to continue the work. At one point, the work was stopped by military force because of lies and things that were being said about them from their pagan neighbors who hated them and hated God. And because there's always people that are inspired by demons to make life difficult if you're trying to serve God. That's just how it is. But Zerubbabel was accustomed to hard work, hardships, harsh criticism, and hindrances to continue work. He was accustomed to those things. Don't think that just because you're doing the right thing that all of a sudden it's easy. No, sometimes it's hard to do the right thing. But the good news is you have the grace of God to be finishers and to do it anyway. And Zerubbabel had that grace as well. Trait number five of Zerubbabel is he worked in partnership with spiritual leadership, listening to their instructions. Sometimes you'll find somebody that's not as effective in service because they don't listen to anybody. They always think that they've got the answers for everything. And so they'll do it their own way, and they'll do it the wrong way, and they're difficult to work with. Don't be like that. Zerubbabel worked with spiritual leadership. He took input. He took correction. There were people like Haggai and Zechariah and Joshua the priest, and different ones that were all valuable parts of the team. And he wasn't just this independent, I'm the boss, I can do what I want. He was a servant, and he was also working with others. He was taking instruction. He wasn't like, I know better than you, Joshua. I know better than you, Haggai and Zechariah. You're just prophets. I know how to do my job. Don't ever be like that. That's not a good servant attitude. A servant attitude stays humble, and that's how they get to be good at their job, is because they're willing to listen. They're willing to take correction. They're willing to grow and not get hardened in their ideas and with pride. Zerubbabel worked in partnership with spiritual leadership, listening to their instructions. Trait number 6, Zerubbabel put God's house above his own house. In the book of Haggai, Haggai prophesied that God was not pleased with the people because they're trying to build their own house and not finishing the house of God. Zerubbabel was one of the first people to rise and build the house at a really inconvenient time, and at a time when it was potentially dangerous because of the opposition. Zerubbabel put God's house above his own house, and that's what a servant of Christ does, is they put God's house above their own house. Trait number 7 is Zerubbabel obeyed God until mission accomplished. Zechariah had a vision, and he said that not by might, not by spirit, but by my power, says the Lord of hosts. And it says that you're going to see the same hands that started the work, that laid the foundation stone. He's prophesying to Zerubbabel. You're going to see that's those same hands see the work complete. That's going to be holding the plumb line, or that was the measuring stick that showed the work is done. And he obeyed until it was done. And there's a lot of people that start out in life that don't finish. Zerubbabel was a finisher, and a good servant of Christ is also a finisher.